Robert Plank Show, episode 237, Money Answers. Set up your business structure, get business financing, put your money to work for you, refinance student loans, and optimize your mortgage with Jordan Goodman. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the program. Our guest today is Jordan Goodman. So Jordan is known as America's Money Answers man, and he's been answering America's questions about personal finance topics for over 35 years. And his experience includes 18 years as the Wall Street correspondent for Money Magazine, 9 years as a financial analyst for NBC News, 6 years with Marketplace Radio. He's a regular guest on all kinds of TV, radio, podcasts. He hosts a highly popular weekly Money Answers radio show on Voice America Business Network. He's the author of over 14 books, including Fast Profits in Hard Times, Master Your Debt, The Ultimate Guide to Student Loans, Master Your Money Type, and the Dictionary of Finance and Investment Terms. He is on top of the latest trends in finance and investing and can speak to current issues in a lively, opinionated, and helpful way. Sounds like we've got a really smart guy in the program. Welcome to the show, Jordan.
Great to be with you, Robert.
So we listed all those cool things. So, what's Mr. Jordan all about, and what makes you stand out from these other sort of financial type of people out there?
Well, first of all, I'm objective. I've been doing this about 35 years, and I know lots of resources that can help people. I'm going to give you some great strategies, but I'm also going to give you very specific websites, phone numbers, organizations that help you implement the strategies. People can just spout off about strategies, but then, what do I do about it? So I'm going to give you specific places that I think are very good that can actually help you implement the strategies. What makes me tick is helping people with their financial decisions. There's a lot of people that have almost no financial education, and they're thrown out in the real world without a lifeboat, basically. And that's what I've been doing for a long time, is helping people. At my website, moneyanswers.com, I've got loads of resources and links and videos and all kinds of things to help them. So this is what I love to do.
Awesome. So I can't wait to dive in and help some people. So, our audience, we have a lot of people who are, work-at-home entrepreneurs. Maybe they're in it just, like a one-person business. Maybe they have a few people in their business. But I think that most people listening, like they have, websites, and they do social media marketing and get traffic and stuff like that. So as far as the money side of things, with that audience, what sort of problems are they facing, and where do you see that type of person getting stuck today?
First thing is to have the correct structure for your business. And a lot of people don't do that. In other words, they just start, they're so into the business, whether it be social media marketing or selling a widget or a service of some kind, they don't think about the structure of the business. So I always say, set up a business in the beginning to make it so you can sell it later. Maybe it's 5 years from now, maybe it's 50 years from now, but just set it up so it's easier to sell down the road. So there are different choices, and there are pros and cons of each. A lot of people do it as a sole proprietorship, which pretty much means you run it out of your personal bank account, which is probably the worst way of doing it, but a lot of people do it that way. You can do a subchapter S corporation, where basically the income and losses flow through from the sub S into your personal account. You can do a subchapter C corporation, where it's kind of separate from your own personal finances. You can do an LLC, limited liability corporation, where you can take in investors. You can do a limited partnership, where you kind of bring in partners. Those are the basic choices you have. And it's complicated as to which is best for you, but let me give you a resource right now that can help you figure out in your particular situation what's best for you. And that's a website called businessanswerstoday.com. They've got a phone number too, 877-627-5555. And what they've done is help tens of thousands of businesses make exactly that choice. What entity should be set up, and where should it be set up? Now mine are set up, even though I live in New York, in Nevada, because Nevada has all kinds of asset protection rules that'll help you in case you get sued. And there's a lot of crazy lawyers out there looking for victims, so you want to be protected against frivolous and other kinds of lawsuits. So, for example, what I do, I have an LLC based in Nevada, and that creates a kind of a good corporate shield in case there's some kind of a crazy lawsuit out there. Depends on what your situation is, but the people I just gave you, businessanswerstoday.com, based in Nevada, and in many cases it makes sense to set up a Nevada corporation, even though you're located somewhere else and do business elsewhere, and you kind of run it through that, and it kind of provides both a tax and an asset protection shield for whatever your business may be.
Awesome. Lots of good stuff there. And so yeah, there's the sole prop, S corp, C corp, LLC, LLP, and I've like from yeah, like I think for a couple years I did a sole prop, and then I finally kind of once I had enough income, then I kind of got my act together, and yeah, I'm right there with you. Like I wish I had set that up sooner because I mean a lot of like financial type of people and lawyers, they really kind of scared me, and they said almost like a sole proprietorship should almost be illegal because like I mean if someone sues you or someone falls down or whatever outside your house, I mean they could take your whole
Correct.
sort of business away from you.
All
Super
your
scary.
personal assets are on the line. That's correct. Now, in many cases, if you take out a business loan, you're going to have to do a personal guarantee, meaning they can come after your personal assets if the business fails. But the least you can do is have a structure where it's a business separate from your personal finances. And a lot of people, they're so enthusiastic, they just start writing checks out of their bank account or taking loans off their personal credit cards to get the business started. And then you kind of have to untangle the whole thing. How much did I loan to myself and how did that work and so on? It's just better if you're serious. And this is for business people. This is not like some hobby. A business, according to the IRS, is something where you have the intention of making a profit. And I don't mean you have to make a profit, but you have to show a serious intention to make a profit. And if you do that, you could set up probably a subchapter S is the easiest for most people. But you might want to do a C or an LLC, depends on your situation.
And so, in order for people to figure out which of those, they can go to businessanswerstoday.com or call the phone number 877-627-5555. And so, is that like does that? I mean, who does that ring? Is that call you, or who exactly are they
No, that does
calling?
not call me. No, there's a place called Nevada Corporate Planners, and there's a guy there named Scott Letourneau, who I've known for many years, who's probably the country's leading expert on all these things, setting up incorporation and kind of structuring your business from the beginning. The way he puts it, he's like the McDonald's of starting businesses. It's like, they're all over the place, and nobody knows how to do these things. So he's kind of made it easy to look at the different choices of what structure and where it should be located.
Awesome. And then so when they go to the website or they call, like, is that a free service he provides
No, it's not free. It depends on what you want. I mean, the initial consultation will be free, but then if you actually go ahead and do it, say you set up an LLC in Nevada, he does that kind of thing, and he's going to charge something depending on what it is to file with the state and do all the legal stuff you need to do. But the
awesome?
beginning part is free as far as understanding the situation and figuring out the pros and cons of the different structures.
Perfect, and I really appreciate that because it's like when I ended up having to do that. I ended up having to just like call some people to figure out based on their expertise what to set up because like when I tried to like listen to shows or tried to do all this research, it was like so much conflicting things and so many things to decide. So it sounds like that's the best way to go, just to call that expert and have him tell you what to set up, and then sounds good, and then you pay him to then set that up for you.
And he's done thousands and thousands of these things. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, one of my basic principles of business is if you know something, great. If you don't know something, get somebody who does know it. And you don't have to learn what they've learned. Hire them to use their expertise. Scott is an expert in setting up structures for businesses. So you don't have to learn that. Let him do it. So that's true in a lot of areas of business, actually.
Or in life, right? Like, I mean, if you're needing a new toilet, you're not going to go and learn all this carpentry and stuff. Just go hire the
Exactly.
carpenter to do it.
I'm going to give you the one word that is the key to success in life and business. You want that word, Robert?
Of course, I do.
Leverage. Okay. And by leverage, I do not mean debt. I mean leveraging other people's expertise, finances, contacts, and you can only do so much yourself. You have 24 hours in the day, and actually you probably sleep a little bit as well. So maybe you have 16 hours a day, whatever it is. You can only do so much yourself. But if you leverage your expertise, your advantages with those of others, you can have unlimited success. So that's an example where you use experts to set up a business, to get financing. Vendors can help you. It's just you leveraging other people's time and expertise in a way that wins for them. It's win-win. And the two of you or the 10 of you can create a lot more than you can ever create individually.
Right, and have all those people who are experts in all these areas just like do the best in their area of expertise. So sort of along those lines. So we said that the big problem that you're seeing a lot of people having is they don't have business entity sort of structure set up. And so,
Right.
so if that's set up, or aside from that, like what's the next sort of area where business owners today need to be focusing or thinking about, or are looking for people to help leverage whatever they need to get done? Like, what's the next thing to move on to?
Financing, because a lot of people finance their businesses the wrong way. They do it on personal credit cards. They take money from friends and relatives, and if the business goes down, it destroys your family and all your friends. So that's not a good way of doing it. There are ways of financing a business, either a startup or once it's going, that do not kind of take your personal financial relationship down with other people. And there is good news and bad news in this area. The good news is there is money available for small businesses. The bad news is it's really hard to get from traditional banks. All the new regulations, the Dodd-Frank regulations, have made it really, really tough to get loans from banks these days. It could take 6 months to a year with just tremendous amount of paperwork, and then they'll reject you in the end anyway. So that's very frustrating to a lot of people trying to get loans out of traditional banks these days. So as a result, there's a whole industry that's kind of popped up that allows you to get financing from these alternative sources. Hedge funds, family foundations, wealthy individuals, they want to earn a return on their money, and if you can get it at 6, 7, 8% through them, then that's a good return for them, and you get your money much quicker. There are these clearinghouses today that allow you to tap into all that financing in a way you might not be able to get on your own. And my favorite one is called corporatelendingsolutions.com, and their phone number is 877-290-2510, and they do exactly that. The guy who runs it, a guy named Rob Denton, has been in the kind of small business lending world for many, many years. He knows all the players, and so what he does is kind of an underwriting of your situation and said, here's what you need, and here's where I might get it. They kind of arrange for that, and you get financing much quicker and at better terms than you ever could from going to a local bank.
Awesome. So it sounds like, so yeah, like having your own sort of finances or having your family finances, huge no. Going to the banks, I mean, sounds like a good way to do a lot of work, do a lot of waiting from the still say no. So these alternative sources are the way to do it. And so when they call this phone number, this 877-290-2510, what's like, who are they going to talk to, and what's actually
Well, I mean, the ultimate guy is Rob Denton is his name.
Okay.
And but he's got a whole staff of other people as well. And you describe what your business situation is. I mean, he's not going to do like absolute startups where you just have an idea and he's going to, the initial capital. You got to have some traction and be going. But once you've got going and you can show it's a legitimate business, there's a lot of money to be had out there at some pretty decent terms. So those are the people. So they're going to vet you first and see that you've got a legitimate business. And then they know what the people who are funding are looking for. And they're going to present you in the most positive light to be able to help you get financing. So that's the way it works.
Awesome. And so, like, what sort of, is there any sort of like paperwork or documentation people need to have ready when they make this
Pretty
phone
much
call?
bank statements. They just look at bank statements. You don't have to have collateral in many cases. With a bank, traditional bank, they want inventory. They want a building. They want something they can seize if you don't pay them back. With these new lenders, they want to look at your bank statements. They might look at your credit report, both personal and business, a biography of you. They're lending to you, basically, in the business. And so that can be good. This is the right way to do it. I'm going to tell you a wrong way to do it, Robert, which is a lot of people are doing in the small business area, which is what's called merchant cash advances. Okay, what they do is they take over your credit card receivables, and they actually take a piece out of your credit card receivables every day. So say you're a restaurant and you run a lot of things through your, so they're going to take whatever, 1 or 2% of all the bills that go through your credit cards every day. And the end result, it's like 30 to 40% interest or higher. And it's kind of what I call the payday lending of small business. You kind of get on this treadmill that you can never get off. The loans are short-term, like 2 weeks, very high interest rates, very high fees, and it can bury a small business. But it's attractive because you can get your money quick and it's unsecured. It's unsecured except you lose your business because the interest rates are so high. So I would avoid something like this merchant cash advances, which you see a lot of out there these days, and go with something more legitimate like the corporatelendingsolutions.com I mentioned.
Well, cool. And forgive my ignorance a little bit, but when they call about this financing, should people be calling with like at like a specific like number they want, or with an idea of like, okay,
Yes.
I'm gonna use this number to like hire employees? Okay, so
Yeah,
they
they
should
should have
come
an
to.
idea of how much they want to borrow. Yes.
Okay, cool.
It has to be legitimate. Here's
Right.
I'm buying new equipment. I'm expanding next door. I'm going to hire new employees. I've got research and development. I've got marketing. There's some specific reason they need the money, and it's going to pay off. And they're going to, the people who lending the money want to know they're going to get paid back plus interest. So here's how it's going to work out. When I expand, my income is going to go up because of that, and I'll be able to pay you back. So yes, you have to have a business plan to show how you're going to pay it back.
And is there like a typical like dollar amount people are asking for, or is it just all over the place?
Well, I'd say minimum like 20,000 and maximum maybe 100,000. I mean, it could even be bigger than that, but in that range. It doesn't have to be huge amounts. Banks typically like big loans, 2 million, 3 million, 10 million, that kind of thing. To go through all that paperwork, it has to be a bigger loan for them. So they're not interested in these smaller kinds of loans for the most part.
So, but that's good for this corporate lending solutions types of places because then they left that wide open for the rest of us, right?
Exactly. The banks have left a lot behind because and this is true. We've talked about small business loans. This is true in mortgages. This is true in individual loans. Banks are super, super tough on people today. And just because you can't get a mortgage from a traditional bank doesn't mean that people don't want it. So they all go out and go these alternative lending routes. I mean, I'll give you another example. There's something called peer-to-peer lending. The two big players there are called Lending Club and Prosper. And what they do is they put together people who are willing to lend and people who want to borrow. And I do this all the time. So you go on to Lending Club, and it has a list of borrowers and how much they want to borrow and the purpose of it. Pay off my credit cards, buy new equipment, whatever it may be. And you have their credit score, how long they've been in business, have they had any derogatories in the past, everything about them. And then they rank them from A to F, A meaning the safest, F meaning the riskiest. And the A's are like 6, 7, 8%. The F's are like 20%. So obviously you're taking more risk as you go down the risk scale, and you decide how much risk you're willing to take. I've always done B's. B's are like 8 to 11%, something like that. And there have definitely been some defaults, but overall it's been a pretty good return. And then Lending Club does all the work, and you just get the checks. I mean, you get the electronic money, and then you can reinvest it all the time, $25 at a time. So I have a widely diversified portfolio. So there's a way, again, that people are getting loans outside of the traditional banking system because they can't get loans from banks. And so Prosper is another one. So that's a whole growth of the so-called peer-to-peer lending system.
Awesome. So in this day and age, what a time to be alive. There's more than one way to get the job done. And so the people that you deal with, so first of all, we said that they need to have a business structure in place, and business answers today will take care of that, or tell them what to set up and then set it up for them. And then the next issue facing people is that they need to get that financing, and corporatelendingsolutions.com is great for that. So anything else or any other sort of low-hanging fruit for solopreneurs and people like that today?
Absolutely. So another thing is a lot of people have money sitting around in a checking account, either corporate or individual, earning nothing. Just the banks will pay you literally zero on your checking accounts, savings accounts, CDs, money market funds. And the bank's not going to tell you there's any options out there. But there are. There are ways of having your money earn a decent return with a great amount of safety. And what I've been doing lately are what are called commercial real estate income funds. And there's a website for that as well, commercialrealestateincomefunds.com.
I never
And they've got a
never
phone.
would have guessed, right?
Never would have guessed them. These are easy to remember because they're very descriptive. There's a phone number for them as well, 888-444-2102. And what they do is they lend money to people who want to improve or renovate commercial properties, smaller properties typically. Could be like a medical building, an apartment building, a shopping center, student housing, something like that. And again, they're having a hard time getting loans from banks because of everything they make them go through. They lend them the money, they do the renovation. A year later or so, when the property is completely renovated, they pay the loan back, and then they typically sell the property at a profit. And the fund shareholders get a piece of the profit when the building is sold as well. So you not only get 8%, but you get another 1 or 2% on a kind of quarterly profit sharing on top of that when the building is sold. I'll just give you a recent example, Robert, if this would help. There was a guy that had a big house in a university town. I think it was Boulder, Colorado, and he was renting it out to 2 students. So everything was fine, but he said, I want to expand this thing. So he got a loan from this fund, and then it took him about a year. He renovated the house and made it from 2 apartments to 4 apartments in the same house. 4 bathrooms, 4 kitchens, 4 doors. So now a year later, he's got double the income from the same house for having reconfigured the whole house. He then sold it at a big profit, and some of the profit from that goes to the fund shareholders. So he was paying interest all the way along while the renovation was going on, knowing that once the thing was complete, his income, or whoever bought the house's income, would be double what it was when there were only 2 rentals. So that's an example of you're funding people improving property where it's going to pay off for them, and then you get a piece of the profit as well. Minimum hold time for that is 18 months, and there's no commissions whatsoever, so 100% of what you invest goes right to work. And then you can either take the money in monthly checks, or you can reinvest it, have it compound at 8%. You can do it inside an IRA or outside an IRA, either way. And you can do it as a business, or you can do it as an individual. So in a 0% world, I'm just giving you a way to earn 8% on your money.
Awesome. I mean, genius. And so just to make sure that we have the website for that, it's commercial real estate income funds. Is that right?
.com, correct. You're getting these all correct.
Perfect.
And,
I feel like I'm getting a perfect score here.
You are. And again, the phone number, 888-444-2102. This is what's called a Reg A Plus fund. There was a bill passed Congress in 2012 called the Jobs Act. And it took a while for them to kind of work its way through. But in 2016, they've approved all the regulations which allow these so-called Reg A Plus funds, which means that individual investors who are not accredited, small-time investors, can invest in things like this that never would have happened in the past. And small people like lending can get money they couldn't get in the past. It's really helped a lot. And there's a whole new kind of world of equity crowdfunding that has kind of spawned from this Jobs Act. So that's one example. And I'll give you another example. There's a website I've dealt with called dreamfunded.com. A guy named Manny Fernandez who runs that. And his whole thing is to help small businesses, sometimes in the startup phase, or maybe they've started a little bit, to raise money, small amounts, typically up to $100,000. And on his website, dreamfunded.com, last I looked, he's got about 16 different companies, and they'd have a description of the companies, and you're buying equity. You're buying a piece of the company at a very, very early stage. And if it works out, you could make some huge amount of money. Now, probably a lot of them aren't going to work out, but buy a little bit of each. You could do $100 in 16 different companies, and if one of them hits, you'd make it up many, many times over. So this is this whole new world called equity crowdfunding, which is allowing people to invest in private small businesses at a pretty early stage.
Crazy. I mean, I think out of all these things that we've talked about today, I think I'd heard of Prosper, but that's it. I had no idea that there were all these, new and sort of innovative and like crowdfunded ways to either raise money for a business or take some money that's sitting around and sort of grow it. So I mean, it's cool that there's all these just like new opportunities in front of us. And so
Absolutely.
I don't want to keep you for too long, but
That's all right.
we talked about people need to have that business structure, and they can go to businessanswerstoday.com, 877-627-5555. They if they need to get financing, corporatelendingsolutions.com, 877-290-2510. And if they have money sitting around and they want to do that thing with the commercial real estate income funds, then really hard website to remember, commercialrealestateincomefunds.com. Just kidding, because it's the exact thing that it is. 888-444-2102. And then that other thing that you just mentioned was dreamfunded.com, where they can put a little bit of the money into these sort of more of like long shot type of companies, and if that pays off, then a big payday. And so you were very generous here about telling us all these possibilities here, but I kind of want to turn it around on you, Mr. Jordan, and
All right.
and tell us about what you have on about these books that you have and about your website. So I mean, what do you have as far as what you set up?
So my website is moneyanswers.com, and my whole idea is to give people financial resources. We've just given you a few examples here, that empower them to do better with their finances, both as individuals and as small businesses. I see lots of resources out there, and I like to bring those to people who don't know about them. Just like in this case, I think I brought you some things you probably haven't heard about.
Tons.
So I've done these books like the Dictionary of Financial Terms, Master Your Money Type, which is about people's financial personalities, Fast Profits in Hard Times, where I have a whole chapter in there on passive income, which I'm very big on, passive income. And so this is what I do. And I'm on these radio shows and TV shows and podcasts and speaking to all kinds of groups. I just love doing this stuff because I wish people learn more of this stuff in school, but they don't. You can go through the finest university and they don't give you anything about, how to start a business or, how to invest your 401k money or improve your credit score or get a mortgage, all this stuff. I actually went to a college. I've spoken at some colleges. I went to another one and talked to the head of the economics department. So I'd like to come in and speak to your students about all these things. He said, oh, no, that stuff's too practical. He said, that's too real world. We're academic here. We wouldn't want to hear that kind of stuff. It's okay. That's exactly what he said. I said, oh, okay. Well, sorry to break up your bubble here, but these guys are going to go out in the real world pretty soon, and they're going to be completely unarmed for what they're about to do. You go to a job, and they give you a 401k packet that's got 14 choices. It's like, oh, now what do I do? I guess I asked the guy sitting next to me what he thinks. People are totally unequipped to make these kind of major life financial decisions. Or another really bad one is student loans. I mean, people are getting into a huge amount of student loan debt, and then they're making these decisions when they're 17 and 18. They don't even know how to sign a check yet. They've just taken on $50,000 in student loan debt. And then they get out of school, and they don't have a clue of what they're going to do, and now they've got the debt, and over 50% of them are going back and living at home again because they just got to spend their time paying off their student loans, not buying houses and cars and kind of getting on with their life. So there's just a lot of financial misinformation out there and ignorance, and that's been my mission from the beginning, is to try to help combat that.
Well, that's a pretty good mission, and I mean, I can totally relate to some people out there who are kind of like you said, like maybe they made this decision to get these student loans years ago or start a business and get all this debt, and now they need some actual practical stuff that they weren't taught in school to get themselves out of it. And so if people go to moneyanswers.com, I have two questions for you here. First, number one is, how do they get on your list? And then number two, out of the various things you have for sale, what should they buy from you?
Depends on what they're looking for. I mean, I have a lot of links on my website, and a lot of them are affiliates. I mean, you're familiar with the whole affiliate model.
Yeah.
These are things that I think are good. And if people click on it and do some business, I get a little something for that. And so I've put these people together. The affiliate model works really, really well today because you're putting together people who need a service with people who want to provide the service. And the service you're providing is getting the two of them together. So that's a good thing. So it depends on what they're looking for as to what's best. I mean, in my books, I do have a bookstore at moneyanswers.com where they can buy the Dictionary of Financial Terms. I mean, just the terms alone can be intimidating to an awful lot of people. And it's got 5,000 terms. Now it's its 9th edition. That first came out in 1984. So it depends on what they're looking for. Let me just give you two more before we go, two more quick things. One of them, we just talked about student loans. It's a huge burden for a lot of people. And I want to help them realize that they can refinance their student loans to typically a 2 or 3% rate instead of paying 5 or 10 or some much higher rate. There's a website called credible.com, Credible. So you do credible.com/moneyanswers, and they've got a phone number to 866-540-6005. And they have about 4 or 5 different places where you can refinance your student loans, both federal and private, into one loan at a much lower interest rate and pay it off much quicker. That is a huge problem for an awful lot of people. Currently, the average person's graduating with $37,000 in student loans. In the country, we have $1.3 trillion in student loans. It's the fastest growing debt out there. So hopefully that will help some of your people.
I think it will. And did you say you had was that the only resource, or did you have?
No, I've got one more. I've got one more. But after we've taken care of the student loans, people do not realize that they can literally pay their mortgage off in 5 to 7 years instead of 30 years on the same level of income they've got today. This is a strategy called mortgage optimization that you will never hear about from a bank. Okay, banks are happy with the current situation just as it is, which is you keep your money in a checking account earning 0, and you pay them for 30 years with all the interest being front-end loaded. So using mortgage optimization, you use a home equity line of credit, a HELOC as it's called, which is a liquid line against your house. You keep your income in the HELOC. It pushes your principal down every day. And the end result is you're making more and more progress against your principal at an accelerating rate. And depending on how the numbers work out, between 5 and 7 years, your mortgage can be completely paid off. A website to find out more about that would be truthinequity.com. Truthinequity.com. It's a free website. You put in the numbers that apply to your situation, what's called a personal profile. Here's my income, here's my expenses, here's my mortgage, here's my house, all these different things to say, okay, what you're doing today, it's going to take you 28 years to pay off your mortgage. Using the numbers you just gave us, it'll be 6.2 years, whatever it comes out to be. And then step by step, here's how you actually implement the plan. So I've just saved your listeners 25 years off their mortgage and tens of thousands of dollars in needless interest that they're paying that they should not have to be paying.
Awesome. Well, that's very generous of you. And what I liked about what we talked about today is, I mean, there's something in here for everyone, right? If someone just says, "Oh, I'm doing my business as a sole prop this whole time. I need to structure things better," you have the resource for that. Business Answers today. If they are short on money, they need to get some financing for their business, then corporatelendingsolutions.com for that. If they have money sitting around they want to grow, commercialrealestateincomefunds.com and dreamfunded.com. If they have those student loans where maybe if they started off on one life path and said, okay, well, shoot, now I have to pay all this stuff off, credible.com/moneyanswers. And if they own a home, they have a mortgage, get it in a HELOC, do that mortgage optimization, truthinequity.com. And I know that we shared a lot of websites and phone numbers, and we're going to have all those show notes at robertplank.com/237. And then, but the very important place to go is moneyanswers.com. So all kinds of crazy stuff. And so Jordan, before we sort of wrap up and sign off here, anything, any sort of last words or any final thoughts for our listeners today?
Pay attention to your finances, because if you don't do it, nobody else is going to do it for you. Okay, I always say the two greatest forces in personal finance and business finance are inertia and apathy. People don't do and they don't care. Doesn't make any sense, but that's the way it works. I've seen this time and time. I've just given you and your listeners many, many pearls of wisdom and gold and fantastic resources, but you heard them. If you don't put them into action, it's not going to do you any good. So I'm all about action, taking an interest in your finances, making it happen, plan for things, and you can do fantastically. I've done this time and time again. I hand people, here's a way to pay your mortgage off in 5 years instead of 30 years, and they never get around to doing it. Whatever. I want your listeners to take action.
Perfect, and I think they will, and I think that you hit the nail right on the head there. That there's all kinds of good information out there, and a lot of people hear it but don't take action. And so you guys listening, and there's one person in particular listening, and I'm talking directly to you, and I think you know who you are. Are you listening? Go and implement some of this stuff and listen to what Jordan has to say. Maybe listen to today's episode 2 or 3 times, and moneyanswers.com, and check out all those cool places. So, Mr. Jordan, thanks so much for hopping on the program and taking this whole area where a lot of people just make it super complicated or give you lots of decisions, and just making it simple for us and boiling it down and saying, if you're in this situation, do that. If you're in that situation, do that. And there were a lot of low-hanging fruit type of stuff. Like we said, something in it for everyone. So thanks for stopping by the show today.
Glad to do it. I'm always glad to get emails as well at moneyanswers.com to follow up on any of these things.
Perfect. So you guys listening, make sure to send Jordan tons and tons of emails. Just kidding.
Very good. Thanks so much, Robert. I really appreciate it.
All right, another fantastic guest on the Robert Plank Show. So to check out all of Jordan's links and notes and details, go to robertplank.com/237 to find the